Hello, and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about all things postpartum. If you followed me throughout my entire pregnancy journey, or you've just been watching my videos for basically the last year, then you would have seen and heard me talk about some of the things that I did to prepare myself mentally and emotionally and physically for the postpartum experience, because I just had my first baby girl back in June. Being a first-time mom, I really didn't know what to expect. I knew that everyone experienced such different postpartum seasons, and I had no idea what mine would hold. I didn't know anything, and so I really did try to set myself up for success as much as I possibly could. But now, being on the other end of it, I am 9 weeks or 10 weeks postpartum now. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Around there. And wow, if I could go back and tell myself some things, I would. And I would definitely change a couple things on like how I prepped, and so I wanted to share that with you in case you yourself are about to enter that season of postpartum. Whether this is your first time or your fifth time, I feel like every time is probably such a different experience because of certain things that I'm going to touch on in this video. But this video is ultimately everything I would have told myself if I could go back now, knowing what I know about postpartum, and also just like things that I wish someone had told me and had talked to me about and had helped me maybe prepare for. So I hope you find this video helpful. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I make motherhood and lifestyle videos, and yeah, without further ado, let's jump into today's video and hope that sweet Samantha, who is napping over there, decides to stay asleep so I can finish this video. One of the first things that I did want to touch on is what I had kind of talked to you guys about before Samantha was born. So one thing that I did share that I was kind of planning to do for postpartum was to follow the 5-5-5 postpartum rule. It's 5 days in bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed. So basically it's all about promoting healing, not pushing yourself too hard in those first 15 days of postpartum, allowing your body and your mind to reset and heal, and having that bonding time with your baby. And so did I follow that? A couple people have asked me, did I follow the 5-5-5 rule? And I will say I followed parts of it, but I wasn't like strict about it because we have quite a small home. It's not like I was going up and down stairs. We lived in an apartment, and like it was like 10 steps to our living room from our bedroom. So I didn't really like force myself to like stay in bed, stay on the bed, and stay around the bed, because I know some people do that if like their bedroom's upstairs and maybe they're trying to eliminate how many times they're walking up and down the stairs throughout the day. However, because we lived in a small space, I found that I didn't really need to like force myself to stay in my bedroom, because it was perfectly healthy and okay for me to be walking around our house. With that being said, I am grateful that I had read up some blog posts and just some other people's experiences with the 5-5-5 postpartum rule, and then I went into postpartum with that mindset, because going into it with that mindset, I did take it really easy. Those first like 2 weeks, I did sleep a lot. I did stay in bed. Rodolfo and I basically lived either in the bedroom or in the living room, just lounging on our couches, and I really took it easy. I would just relax. When I would nurse Sammy, sometimes I would watch a show. I would nap when she would nap, and I would just like interact with her while laying in bed. I really did take it easy, so I didn't necessarily follow this like super strict rule where I didn't leave my bedroom for 15 days, but because of that mentality that I went into it with, I was able to remind myself like, hey, I need to take it slow. There's no rush to get back to anything, and there's no pressure or expectation for me, so let's just rest and give my body that time to reset. So would I recommend the 5-5-5 postpartum rule? 100%. And if it's something that you feel would benefit you, I would definitely recommend like prepping yourself for that, talking to your husband about what that might look like and what you're expecting from him, what he should expect from you. I think that's very beneficial. But just for me, I didn't necessarily need to be super strict about it, but it's always a good mentality to go into postpartum knowing just lounge, relax. You know, take it easy, rest, and allow your body to heal. A huge thing that I wish that someone had kind of told me was to take it hour by hour. Don't take it day by day, because when you have a baby, so much happens in a day, and a day almost feels like an entire year in that first week to 2 weeks when everything is so new. Honestly, the days fly by, but it feels like so much happened in that day that it could have been an entire year. And so what I wish I had been told was to take it hour by hour and to ask yourself every single hour, what do I need? So what do you need in this hour? Do you need cuddles from your husband? Do you need your husband to sit beside you and support and encourage you? Do you need to go into the bathroom and lock yourself away for 5 minutes and take a sitz bath, or to take a shower or wash your hair? Maybe you really need to take a nap, and you need to either plan that in for your baby's next nap time, or you need to ask your husband to hold the baby so that you can take like a quick little power nap before maybe they need to be fed again, or things like that. Or just take a nap while you're holding your baby. Just close your eyes while you're sitting there, you know, your husband's around, and it's totally okay to just close your eyes and rest and relax in that moment. Honestly, for like the first week, I was so tired waking up to nurse Sammy. I would just close my eyes while she nursed, and even just resting my eyes, it did like really help. The hours will fly by, and then suddenly the day will be over, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even get a nap in. I'm now exhausted, and I'm gonna stay up all night with this baby. I hardly ate enough. You know, I really need support from my husband. I'm feeling disconnected from him, but how do I ask for that? It's just so important to hour by hour check in with yourself. And that's something I feel like you could even talk with your partner about, is like, hey, every hour, like set an alarm on your phone if you need to, for it to go off every hour, and just write check in on the alarm. And then the two of you come together and be like, okay, how are we doing? What do we need right now? And also remember that your husband has needs too. And so he might need something in that hour that you could then help him with. So that is just a very practical tip that I feel like would be so helpful. And next time we go into postpartum with our next baby and our future children, I definitely plan on like doing that a bit better. Just like checking in with each other and not letting too much time go, because then you might get burnt out, exhausted, you might be hangry, and things like that will just lead to nothing good. Okay, I'm gonna be super honest. The biggest thing with postpartum is that you really can't plan for it. Like, you really cannot plan for what your postpartum experience will be like, because your postpartum experience depends on everything that is out of our control. So the first thing that it depends on is what labor experience you have. So if you have a C-section, if you have a vaginal birth, if you go all natural, or maybe you had to have a ton of meds and you're like coming down from that, or maybe you had a super positive birth experience, maybe you had a traumatic birth experience and you're like emotionally distraught because of it. Uno momento, I need to go. It's also going to depend how well your baby sleeps and how much sleep you're getting at night, how your breastfeeding experience is going, whether breastfeeding is painful or positive for you, or it's a real struggle, whether your baby has medical conditions or is born healthy and there's 0 medical conditions. You guys, there's so many things out of our control that we don't know what's gonna happen, and we can't necessarily plan for it. And so there has to be a part of your postpartum prep that is letting go and letting whatever is be. So for example, I could not have planned for the labor experience that I had. I could not have planned for the postpartum things that I went through. I couldn't have planned for the fact or known that, you know, Sammy would be in a difficult position for me to push her out, that the cord would be wrapped around her neck, that she would have difficulty breathing, and that ultimately forceps would have to be used. I couldn't have planned for the fact that I ended up getting an epidural. Guys, I literally relied on like every painkiller out there because I was in so much pain and my labor was so difficult for me, and I just mentally was so done. And because of the fact that forceps were used and everything happened very sudden and very fast, when they found out like the cord was wrapped around her neck and her heartbeat was starting to drop, and it was, or her heart rate, and it was really scary and stuff like that, I couldn't have planned for the trauma that left me with, and the fact that I literally cried myself to sleep for the first week. You guys, when Sammy was placed on my chest for the first time, I suddenly got so nauseous, I barfed. Like literally I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I held her off here. They thankfully like got me like a little bucket, and I literally just like puked. And I was like, I cried because that beautiful moment of becoming a mother, I felt like was not very beautiful. I was throwing up and basically trying to dodge my baby that had just been placed on my chest. I hadn't even looked at her face, and I was puking. And it was just like, there's so many things that are out of our control, and so you have to ultimately just let it go. And you have to be okay letting go of that control, and understanding that at the end of the day, all that matters is that you and baby are healthy. If you and baby are healthy, then that's the goal, you guys. That is the goal, is to birth your baby. And that needs to be your goal. And the rest of it, you have to just kind of let go. Of course, there are things we can aim for. I was aiming for a natural birth. Did not happen. That's okay, you know? And so I just want to share that, because there has to be a part of your postpartum prep where you just simply say, okay, I'm planning for this. I've set up myself for success as much as I can. The rest is in God's hands, and I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to let it be what it is. And I am then going to try my best to cope with what does happen, you know? So if anything, try and get yourself in a really good, healthy mental state for postpartum, because your hormones are going to be everywhere. You could have some post-birth trauma. Your baby could have medical conditions. You could be having to stay at the hospital longer than you thought. There's just so many things that we don't know if they're going to happen. And so the best thing you can do is stay close to your partner and just like remind yourself that it's going to be okay, and you're going to make it through this season, no matter what it has in store for you. Going along with that is like, don't set these expectations for yourself. So I'll be honest, because I've dealt with mental health struggles in the past, I really thought that I might deal with some postpartum depression. But you guys, I dealt with 0 postpartum depression, which I'm so grateful for. But postpartum anxiety like slammed me against a wall. And I had researched 0 about postpartum anxiety because I didn't think it was something I would deal with. I was like, oh, if anything, I'll probably deal with the postpartum depression. And so because of that, I wasn't prepared, and I was kind of thrown off guard, and I felt guilty about it, and I felt bad that I was dealing with this. So just set 0 expectations for what your postpartum experience is going to be like, and just go into it. Like I said, let go of the control, let go of us wanting to plan everything and all that stuff. Just let it go. Another huge thing that is so important is to communicate with your partner. You know, your relationship does change when you have a baby, and it shifts. It has to. The second your baby is born, and the second you hear your sweet baby's first cry, your life will never be the same. And I don't just mean that in like, oh, your heart changes and it's so amazing. I mean that in like, literally nothing about your life can work the same way that it was in the past. Everything has to be changed. The way that you grocery shop, the way that you run errands, the way that you get a good night's rest, everything changes, and you have to adapt. And that also means that your relationship changes and has to adapt. And so staying close to your partner in those first couple of weeks of postpartum is so important. Communicate openly, share everything you're feeling with them. Let them share with you what you're feeling, and don't, I kind of regret this. I remember feeling like, well, why are you complaining? Like, I'm up all night nursing the baby, and I'm the one who's like physically healing and recovering from this. I'm the one dealing with the trauma. And then I just was like, why am I doing that to him? Like, that's so unfair. You know, he watched that too. It was just as traumatic for him to watch me and Sammy go through kind of that scary moment when we didn't know what was going to happen. And you know, it's just as difficult for him when I'm exhausted and I'm probably a bit more moody than usual. And he's tired too. Just because I'm nursing Sammy, he's awake and he's getting woken up and having broken sleep. And so I feel so bad that I did that in the beginning, and it's something I hope I don't do in another postpartum experience, in my next postpartum, is like, just love your spouse and love your partner, because as much as you're having a hard time, they are probably too going through some things. It's an adjustment, and so come together as one. And when Rodolfo and when I made that switch and we came together as one, it like was night and day. I feel like emotional talking about this, but it's just so beautiful when you come together as a couple and you're like, you know what, we're both kind of struggling. We both have things that, you know, we're dealing with, and we're both like on this emotional, our emotional tanks are like running on serious low, and just come together in that and be like, you know what, let's lift each other up. Let's work together. Let's be a team in this. You know, we're both sleep deprived, so we're both gonna work through it together and things like that. You know, don't hold things like over each other's head, like, oh yeah, well, you're up nursing the baby, but you know, I'm like cooking you food, and just like don't do stuff like that, because it's just gonna lead to burnout on both of your ends, and you need each other in that time. You need each other so much. So rely on each other more than you ever have. And there's things you can do before your baby's born to plan for that. Communicate, set expectations, maybe set tasks. So like, okay, Maybe for you, it's really important that your dishwasher is loaded and unloaded every day. So ask your partner, can you just do that for me every day? Like, that would be huge. And maybe they need you to be like, you know what? I'm gonna need maybe just like a 30-minute nap every day so that I can be there for you. I need to also clear my mind. So you can then prioritize that time for them. There's just so many things you can plan for, but just make sure you talk about it, and communication, just open communication with your partner is so important in that postpartum season. And then the last thing I want to share with you guys is something I repeat almost all the time, and it's show yourself grace and just love yourself, because you just performed a miracle. You literally just performed a miracle birthing your baby, and it doesn't matter how it happened. It doesn't matter how many painkillers you needed, or if you needed the epidural, or if you didn't. You birthed your baby and you performed a miracle. And so, like, show yourself so much love and grace for that. Rest when you can, and just soak up that newborn stage, because I'm gonna tell you, it goes super fast. Like, I feel like 2 weeks is when they're like really, really fresh newborns. Like, Sammy's still a newborn. She's 2 months old. She's a baby. But I feel like those 2 weeks, they're just so fresh, and they just sleep all day, and they're just so cuddly, and they're just, oh, it's like a sacred time with your baby almost. So just cherish it as much as you can. Even if you are crying and you feel like you need a shower, just try and cherish it as much as you can. I know that sounds so weird. I look back at pictures of the first couple weeks and I'm like, oh my gosh, I look dead. Like, I literally look so tired. But I'm just grateful that I tried my hardest to just soak it up as much as I could, you know? Take care of yourself, obviously, you know, do what you need to do to feel good about yourself, but just try and embrace the messy of postpartum. That is everything that I wanted to share with you. I truly hope that this was helpful, and that if you're about to enter into your very first season of postpartum, that these tips, you can apply them into your kind of postpartum prep, so we'll call it, even though we know we can't prep for everything. And I really hope it was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please again give it a thumbs up and share with a friend. Like, if you have a friend who's pregnant or who's maybe struggling with their postpartum experience, you know, I would love if you would share this with them, and hopefully this can encourage them in their postpartum journey as well. And if you guys have any questions about postpartum, please feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram. I'm very happy to talk about it. But yeah, I love you guys so much. I hope that if you are expecting your first child, or your second, or your 5th, or your 10th baby, I hope that your postpartum experience is positive as much as it can be, and that you remember to show yourself grace always. So I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.